Okay, we're good to go?
Hang on just one second. Double report.
Okay, are we all ready to go?
Should be.
Yeah, okay. I would like to call this meeting of the ASWWU Executive Board on November 16th to order at 5:33 p.m. Before we move to any official business, there's 2 revisions to the agenda tonight. Vice President Liam Pratt is unable to make it to this meeting today. And so we are going to be tabling the appointment for the Sustainability, Equity, and Justice Fund, and then also the Vice President report. And then we don't need to table Morgan's Vice President report since she has given a written report that will be read today. Yeah, can I get a motion to table these 2 items to the November 30th meeting?
One moves to table the appointment to the SEJF Fund Committee and Liam Pratt's BP report.
You can, that works. I would, sorry, advisor, no, I would suggest it's a motion to revise the agenda as stated.
Yeah.
With those things included, just consistent language as we start to move forward, knowing that I threw this hook into your process like last week.
Is there a second?
Colin seconds.
It's been motion and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor of the revisions to the agenda as stated, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? It passes unanimously. Okay, first we're going to move on to the consent item, which is just the meeting minutes from October 26th. Was everybody able to review those before the meeting today? Would anybody like to motion to approve the consent item?
Yeah, so just really only one edit, section 5 info items, outreach council should read outreach task force. And also the membership, it only says who was there, not who's not there. So as long as those 2 things are good and changed, I'm fine with it.
And then what was the other thing for, was it action items, the committee, or was it?
Info items, I guess, outreach council should be outreach task force.
Yeah, and what about we were talking about the membership of the meeting,
Oh, yeah.
those who were attended?
It just says present, and then it says the 4 people that were present, but it doesn't say who was absent.
Have we included people who were absent on previous ones? Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, can I really like to approve the meeting minutes with the stated changes?
I had a change to, sorry, businesses. In section 4, officer reports, see just the note that says, they've determined that lobby day will be February 19th and 24th, and we'll work on posting material, it's just the 19th.
Are there any other revisions to the agenda, or not revisions to the meeting minutes, sorry? Would anybody like to motion to approve the consent items with the stated amendments?
Godwin motions to approve the consent items with the stated amendments.
One second.
It's been motion and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? It passes unanimously. Okay, so next we're going to be going on to public forum. There's nobody here today. So next is going to be the chair report. There are a couple of things that I'd like to go over today, and then one of the items is actually going to be an information item, so I'll hold off on talking about it. The main thing is the committee task force is getting up and running, working on that currently. Really excited to see what we are going to be doing, but I think the first order of business with the committee task force is going to be creating a 3-year cycle on which we review the committee's charge and charters that come before the executive board. And then I think also the couple that go before the student senate, and then any ones that go before the student senate and executive board, clearly stating those. But the Office of Civic Engagement has been doing amazing work tracking down who is on which committee, the chairs of each committee, and hopefully that information will be continued, because a lot of it we've been lacking, and so it's super exciting to see all the work that's being done there. Last week was Voter Hub on campus, which was super exciting. A lot of students were able to turn in their ballots and vote on campus, which is really exciting. I staffed it for a little bit, and I know a couple of other people here did as well on the executive board, which is super exciting. Very exciting to see students continue to be engaged on a civic level, and hopefully they continue to do so not only in state and federal elections, but also in state, county, and federal elections, but also on on-campus elections. As you all know, we have the spring election, and so hopefully we continue to see that happen. Over the past 2 weeks, we've been working on the appointment, finding or reviewing candidates for the activities, vice president for activities. Super excited to be able to appoint somebody at today's meeting, and we're going to be discussing that further in executive session, but hopefully at the end of the meeting today, we will be able to officially share our appointment for that position. And I think that is everything, there's a couple of events that are happening by ADEI. They're the ADEI unit on campus. I know tomorrow at 10:30 there is a webinar, and so everybody who's on the executive board, we should be attending these regardless. They're super educational and really good events to attend, but anybody who is an AS employee also has to attend at least one event and share on a win form, on a win pathway, what they've learned about the event, and kind of the importance in engaging that. So I know it's coming up to the end of the quarter, and so I think we should start engaging with those if we haven't already, and there's a couple of really cool ones that are coming up this week, I think the beginning of next week, and then throughout the rest of the quarter. Yeah, so if you have any questions about that, please let me know. We've been, the charge or the charter for the student government is being, we're meeting in a task force currently to edit that. It is 2 members from the student senate, which is the Senate President Gabe, and then also the College of Science and Engineering Senator, who's John Harding, who's going to be sitting on that. Hardgrove. John Hardgrove, along with myself, the AS President, and then Sophie Snyder, who is the Vice President for Student Services. And so we had our first meeting, and then we'll meet twice before the end of the quarter, and then hopefully at the very end of the quarter, at the very last meeting, we'll be able to present some edits, and then next week we'll also be able to come forward with some edits that have been made and some thoughts. And it is still open to any student government people that would like to meet with Melinda, or any changes that they would like to be seen made to the charter. Please reach out, or reach out to Melinda, and we can make that happen. The only person who's met with Melinda is Gabe, and I had a co-meeting together, but then I've also approached Melinda a couple of times about individual edits that I thought, and nobody else has. And so we're really encouraged, if there's anything that you see in the charter or that you think should be edited, please go ahead and do that. Because we are hopefully going to try and get it on the February Board of Trustees meeting. Yes, Gabe.
I just want to clarify when you're asking people to like reach out with edits, you want them to reach out to you or to Melinda? Because I thought you wanted it to all go through you so we all like have the same information.
Yeah, you are welcome to reach out to Melinda if that is what you feel is most appropriate, since Melinda's kind of the one where we're bringing the edits to her. But you can also, anybody is welcome to attend the task force and share any things, or email me about anything, or email Melinda, you're more than welcome to. And the offer was extended by Melinda that anybody is welcome to schedule a meeting with her, and that still stands. I actually met with her today, and so it is still an offer that stands that anybody is allowed to take up on any time, regardless of talking about charter or something else. So yeah, I'm sorry that was a lot, but a lot has been happening. Next is a report from Morgan Witt, the Vice President for Diversity. She's unable to be here in person today, and so she sent a written report that says, the past couple of weeks, I've been connecting with people around campus. I have made contacts with the Social Justice Committee through John McLaughlin. I have also connected with the Civil Rights and Title IX office to learn about the process of how those reports, as well as the bias incident reports, work. I have gotten into contact with the Provost office to work on creating ADEI training for encompassing for Compass to Campus students and staff. I have reached out to Eric, who gave a presentation to the SEJF committee about how they found ADEI training platforms to help to look at which ones would best fit Compass to Campus. Yeah. And then next we have the advisor report.
Yeah, advisor, nothing major this week. Just want to make sure everybody keeps their antenna up about, activities around campus tomorrow in particular. I'm sure hope it's no surprise that there's another rally planned. University has the typical planned and coordinated response across campus and with local agencies if needed. Red Square from 10 to 1-ish tomorrow may be impacted traffic-wise. So I think that's it for this week. Thanks for getting timesheets in. Keep doing that. Timesheet's good. That's it. And I will have to run at 6:30 this evening, just so you're all aware if I sneak out, but we'll be available by team should there be any urgent advisor questions this evening.
Sounds good. Does anybody have any questions for Adam? Okay, next we are going to be moving on to information items. So I wanted to talk briefly about the Associated Students Gaza statement. So as you are all aware, we passed a statement through the Student Senate and the Executive Board with the hope that we would send it out with resources for students and also a couple of sources that they could find. And this was passed a couple of weeks ago, and we, after talking and meeting with Olive, who is the AS Communications Director, I shared some apprehensions that I had about sending the statement out, as I felt it could be seen as global affairs continue to transpire, and also as situations on campus continue to happen and escalate. I didn't think that it was necessarily the most appropriate statement for the time, since we had to wait a little bit to get some resources back. Both on my part, I dropped the ball for a couple of days, being pretty busy with some other things, and then also reaching out and waiting for some other staff in the university to respond with resources for students, tracking down all of that, and then also working with the communications office to make sure that it can be everything in the email was all ready to go, and they've been severely understaffed and had a very big problem there. And so due to all of these issues, talking with Olive, we both decided that the current statement that we have passed might not be what we would like to share with students, and might not be necessarily the most appropriate thing that is going out, especially from the student government. We want to make sure that students feel like they're listened, heard, and we feel that the statement might not necessarily meet the needs of students at this very instance. And so it's really about the needs of students on campus is our entire thing. And so we really want to make sure any statements that we're putting out align with that as well. And so we have a meeting, or by we, I mean myself, Gabe, the communications director, and Morgan Witt. We are going to be meeting on Monday along with our advisors to discuss the statement a little bit more in depth. But I wanted to update everybody in the executive board and let you know that so you can communicate to the correct bodies, whether it be Gabe, you communicate back to the student senate. It is unsure if there's going to be edits made, what it's going to be, what the plan is going to be, since it's important that we address what is happening in a very timely manner, but also we need to do it with the most care and respect for students on our campus community. And so I wanted to first, before that meeting, open it up to anybody here in the executive board that has any thoughts, whether we think we should send the statement out regardless and we shouldn't have the meeting on Monday, that we shouldn't pursue changes to the statement, since it has already been passed by the executive board and the Senate, or if we do think that it's appropriate, then what are thoughts and how can we really address it to fit students' needs?
I'm just trying to find it so I can read it again.
Since it had been passed and publicly available, I shared it with some people just to say what do you think? This hasn't been released yet, and I had really positive feedback from people. They felt like it was very well-rounded, and it opened things up to students of saying we're your student government and we're here for you and we want you to be heard, but also you're allowed to criticize us and you can hear that too. And just acknowledge the reality of what's happening and also providing space for people to be in contact with us.
Well, I just read it again. I think the one concern I might have, and I think when I talked to all of at some point recently about it, time to circle or whatever, was sort of there, especially in light of Subba's most recent email, that sort of the standing behind free speech, when some of that speech may be interpreted as negative. I think that if we look at this statement, it's talking about supporting our Arab, Muslim, and Jewish students, and I think that as you all probably know, the language that Subba was concerned about in his email last Friday or the Friday before was not from Arab, Muslim, or Jewish students. That's just, I think that it's especially, since there's going to be another rally tomorrow that is from Arab, Muslim, and Jewish students, or at least a subset of them. I think that sort of that past rally might be sort of out of the public mind by the point, if we were to release this tomorrow or Monday, I think it would still be fine, but I'm also perfectly willing to talk about it some more, if that's sort of where everyone's head's at.
Yeah, we just wanted to make a really transparent conversation about this since we have passed it, and we just wanted to check in since it's been 2 weeks since we have passed it. Do we feel like it's the most appropriate? And then also the additional meeting on Monday as well to discuss it further. So.
I mean, if we're gonna change it, are there any specific changes that people have in mind? I'm kind of thinking the sooner the better, just because things from us haven't been stated, and if there isn't any drastic change, I would be in favor of releasing it.
Well, I would just say, I think that if we were to try to make something that's perfectly appropriate at this point, we would kind of have to maybe take it very structurally. I don't think working from this statement would produce something that's substantially different or better. I think like we had talked about, I think 2 weeks ago, was like the possibility of further supporter statements, would be more perfect. I think like Seppa certainly didn't like change his like first email and then have a second email that was like, or yeah, like didn't withhold the statement or whatever. So I think that like it's been approved. I don't think it's like reading it, it doesn't feel to me like it's necessarily in a specific time. Like obviously it came out of like the situation 2 or 3 weeks ago. But I still think it's like mostly relevant. So yeah.
My other thought too is instead of, I feel like we use very abstract language as well, and we're like empathetic to those affected by the attacks in Gaza. I thought that it might be more impactful to use more like stronger language, or like the recent escalation. It's a very violent escalation where it's not, I feel like just using some of the words that we have here, or the use of humanitarian crisis when it is like a very violent thing that is happening right now, that the changing and specific wording might be to the benefit and might be more impactful for those in our community, since I think that on some of the language that we can use that we have currently is very soft language, because 2 weeks ago what we were referencing, at least on like an international scale, was not to the level that it is now. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Oh, I certainly do. I'm waiting for a little bit of a spot, but yeah, advisor comment. This is that classic governance and comms challenge with very quickly evolving world events, right? In particular, you've got the scenario of a statement that's been approved. If you go back and edit it substantively to address the conditions today or tomorrow, that's another 2 weeks out before you can get it out, and there's so many what ifs about there. I don't see the statement ever catching up with the events necessarily. And if you release a statement in 2 weeks about the recent, updated or increased violence, and let's hope maybe there's an actual movement towards ceasefire in that time, you get caught in that, oh wait, our statement's not relevant anymore, which is great. It's better to have a statement and withdraw it before you send it out than it is to come out with something that's tone deaf and not appropriate. But you're getting to that kind of crux of statement, no statement. Is it more harmful to try to keep up with everything, or to say, this is good, go with it, update if needed?
Yeah, I think we can also talk about Monday too as well. If it's like, if we do want to make changes, what would be the next appropriate steps? Does it go through the executive board? Is it something that's just then coming from individual members of the executive board that is being sent out? So I'm just nervous, especially about the word like humanitarian crisis. Like lack of drinking water is called like a humanitarian crisis, and using that language, it gets to the level where it feels kind of tone deaf. Not kind of tone deaf, it does feel tone deaf to me, at least that's my personal opinion. And so I'm just want to be, well, I do agree with a lot of it, and it does seem, I just want to be very intentional about the words that we use and how we don't want it to have further impact on those in our campus community, so.
Well, I asked, okay, if you are suggesting that we change the word humanitarian crisis to something that's, maybe stronger, is there sort of a range of options you would consider? I know we had sort of landed on humanitarian crisis because like the UN hadn't called it a genocide yet. I don't know, sort of what your thinking is out there.
Yeah. Aaron?
Yeah, I totally understand like the apprehension, and humanitarian crisis, like feeling like a downplay of like what's happening there. But it is still like a humanitarian crisis. That there's a lot of suffering, death, mortality, hunger, all these kinds of things, and I think it is still an appropriate time to use because it doesn't encompass everything that's happening, but it's still relevant.
Well, maybe an option I would propose is something that would probably not require Google, is just to like date the statement, like just date it from when it was approved in the executive board. And then just like add a note that like this was, I don't know, administratively delayed or like, we ran into some logistical problems with getting this out in a timely manner. Which I think would, maybe if people have sort of, like I think if people know that, like maybe it's less likely that they'll sort of see it as completely tone deaf, if they know like the context of the statements. I know that's something we were trying to go for originally when we were first talking about a statement back in almost a month ago now. It was like talking about like really contextualizing it and like humanizing the people behind the statement.
Yeah, I agree with that and saying like we acknowledge that circumstances have changed and we'll like follow up as necessary to deliver the statement to the student body. And yeah, the last two sentences is we tried to approach this carefully and with empathy, but we're not perfect and are open to criticism. Our primary goal with this message is to create an open space for dialogue, and we invite you to reach out to us. You know, which is the real punchline of it, and I think that is still true. So.
Okay, that sounds good. Do we wanna move forward then with a meeting on Monday, or should I contact the the communications director and have it sent out tomorrow?
I'm in favor of having it sent out tomorrow.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Olive is finished. I know Olive was also, like, it wasn't just you that was like having trouble. Olive was also working on the like zine about my brain was like like media literacy. So I know that stuff is all I think ready now. But yeah, I think.
Yeah, and we also want to be careful as well, since this is going to be the third email from the executive board that we're sending out, possibly fourth. So we have the LAC that sent out their survey. We have the tech initiative, well, from student government, the tech initiative. Then we're gonna have this statement, and then we're gonna have the divestment resolution. So within a very short period of time, students are getting 4 separate emails from student government. So we need to be especially careful on how we're moving forward, since we've sent so many statements out on different things or asking students to do different things, and I don't want a statement of importance like this to be minimized by like the other things that we sent out to students, since I know as a student myself, if I'm getting like 3 emails from the same group of people within a week, I'm not gonna read the third one, I'm probably not gonna read the second one, I'm just gonna read the first one. And that's if students even read it to begin with. So let's just I've talked to Olive a little bit about our comm strategy, we're gonna have an area in the newsletter, and so let's just be we're gonna try and be a little bit more coordinated moving forward the way that we're sending out emails, especially when we're passing like official resolutions that we wanna come through, so that those are the ones that are really highlighted, or the statements where we're really taking a stance on stuff that's affecting students. Okay, yeah,
Could I just make one more comment? I think it's also like pertinent and relevant, because I don't know if you all heard about what happened with the professor who had the teach-in yesterday about about Gaza. I had heard, and there's like a petition circulating about like she's being harassed, and you know, saying here in the first sentence that we're committed to upholding these rights of free speech, academic freedom, and assembly on our college campus. I think that, you know, especially relevant. So even though like the statement was made a while ago, it's still relevant to things that are going on, and it can be seen as like us being like protecting academic freedom.
can you, Olive, or can you, Adam, doesn't really know what you're referencing, so can you
I
share
just assume
more
that
information?
All of our
Yeah.
-5 streaming watchers are not seeing this.
I'm going on my phone so I can see the.
Just general, I don't need details,
Yeah,
I'm
it
just
was a
curious.
petition that was sent and there's alumni that have signed on to it, and so it's just supporting the Fairhaven professor that did a teach-in on Gaza yesterday morning
Mhm.
that happened in Fairhaven.
And there was pushback or response to the teach-in that was negative? Is that what I'm interpreting?
Professor has been getting threats and harassment.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that context.
Well, just to add a little bit more to that, in the fact we sent a meeting on Monday, another professor, I don't remember their name, but sort of was addressing, I guess, university administration, but it was only John, or not John. It was only Brad Johnson in that room, the provost at the time sitting, so it was traveling or something. But was concerned that there had been also some like internal pressures against that same Fairhaven professor and against other professors and departments who were trying to organize similar events. So just like, I think, yeah, it is, that sort of language about protecting academic freedom has become relevant again. Yeah, but.
Sorry, I'm just messaging the communications director. Okay, next we are going to be moving on to the LAC agenda outline.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, because the one that is listed in our documents isn't the most up-to-date version, just due to the schedule of when the LDC meetings are. Am I able to share the current document?
You can talk about it and then we can send it out later too. So, because it's pretty similar to a little bit, it's just not formatted as nicely, but that's okay.
Yeah, so, as you all know, the primary purpose of the Legislative Affairs Council is to craft a legislative agenda for, Lobby Day. This year, we are having one Lobby Day, and that is Western Intersectional Lobby Day, February 19th, just February 19th. And the LEC got started kind of late, so it took us a while to get around to drafting our legislative agenda, but we worked on a survey last week, and then we kind of used those survey questions and like the issue areas that we had identified, as the basis of starting our agenda. So, could you zoom in a little bit on that document, so it's easier to read? Yeah, so we kind of grouped things together, just more generally. So sex, gender, and sexuality are together, race, ethnicity, nationality, sustainability and climate action, accessibility, and socioeconomic/education are paired together. And those are just kind of broad areas when we were thinking of how to organize our survey as well as the legislative agenda. So I think I'll just run through the areas that we identified that, as of now, we're starting broad, you know, and then we'll like narrow down. And it was just kind of ideas of like general things, and then whatever becomes more relevant and applicable, the closer we get to legislative session, we'll get more specific. But we wanted to say that we support LGBTQ+ affirming care for minors and adults. We would like to allow abortion pills to be provided at student health centers on campus. We wanted to state that there was a law passed that limits police officers' abilities to do police pursuit and chase after suspicious cars and people. And there was a law that passed that like restricted their ability to do that, but there's a petition going around to repeal that, so it gives officers more like leeway in that, and that like opens them up to racial bias, and so that was something that we wanted to just state that we are in favor of maintaining the current law.
This is a question about that specifically. I know last year, I think it was, there's a House Bill 1369 that supposedly repealed the like police pursuit restrictions that were implemented in light of the BLM protest, the Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. But I think there was like some like kind of misinterpretation, or like it wasn't like it was not written well enough to actually repeal that stuff. So I don't know. That's just something I wanted to know, that I just want to make sure that we're like, you guys are fully clear on that. I know that was something I really dug into last year, because it was like kind of messed up in my opinion to like repeal that sort of stuff that people had fought for in 2020.
Yeah, no, exactly. Don't know about that, but I wrote it down. I'll look more into it. These are all things too that I need to learn more about and be more like specific with. But like I said, we're keeping it broad right now, and we'll get more into the details. Along with police, we wanted to encourage improving police training and interactions with people with disabilities and in like people having mental health crises. Another thing is in Bellingham, city of Bellingham, we have alternative response teams. And so something we were thinking about is like asking for like greater resources for that, asking the legislature for greater resources or like navigating that. And another issue area is undocumented students or mixed status students. The representative from the Blue Resource Center told us about something that the University of California passed, which is called Opportunity for All, that in certain university departments, there's hiring restrictions for undocumented students, or they're unable to get internships that are required for their major. So it's something that like removes those barriers for those students, which I think is really cool. There is, there's something that we were inspired from the Washington Student Association conference last month to add, which is providing undocumented students a comprehensive list of potential employers that they can go to, so their status in the U.S. isn't threatened by their like seeking employment after graduation. Going to sustainability, someone had brought up House Bill 1131 and Senate Bill 5154, which are about solid waste management and reduction, in addition to the like recyclability and compostability of products, which again is something I need to look into more. Something that I brought forward was the carbon tax. So there was a bill passed by the legislature in the past year, the like climate, it is in the survey. But it's a carbon tax, and it like, I'm blanking on it, but again, there's a petition going around to repeal that, because it's perceived to have increased prices for consumers with regard to gas. And so I wanted to kind of encourage legislators to close a loophole that allows oil companies to profit from like increasing their costs and offsetting the like taxes that they should be paying, the cost of the taxes off to consumers. But yeah, something to look into more. A bill that was listed by one of the members was SB 1594, which is adding a climate resilience element to water system plants. Moving on to accessibility, the representative from the Disability Outreach Center had stated that they don't believe that the DAC or the DOC gets enough funding. They don't have enough support. Their caseloads are like increasing with every year, and the Disability Outreach Center specifically doesn't have pro staff, and so it was something that they had asked if we could figure out how to ask for more funding. They had also said their supervisor said that there's like existing capital development budgets where we might be able to like navigate and find money that has already been allocated but like hasn't been applied. So that is something that would be cool. Some university specific things that people have talked about was parking. Parking has been like that has come up again and again in terms of things that students are concerned with, but also specifically with accessibility. People with disabilities have to pay for accessible parking, which kind of, if you have a disability, like, I don't know, that is just an added like barrier for access to our school. Also, the building codes that, like construction codes and regulations that we have, like aren't always like suited for handicapped students. Apparently the ramp that was made from Red Square going towards Carver Gym, there was like a complaint that there wasn't handrails to help students get through, and so talking about like the limits of the building codes that are currently in effect, so asking those to be changed. And then for socioeconomic and education, a big thing that I am pushing for is allowing operational student employees to have bargaining power. That is also a big like conversation. The Western Academic Workers United, ASWWU, union is currently in bargaining, and it only applies to academic workers. We want to expand that to operational student employees as well. So that's something that is on our agenda currently. And basic needs, cost of living, food insecurity, and houselessness are also like really big issues for people. We try to get into more specifics that aren't seen on this document. We kind of said something about rent control, but rent control is illegal in the state of Washington, so that is a bigger issue. Initiative 2 passed in the last election in Bellingham, which is renters protections, which I could get into more detail about, but because that is legal and passed here, we could ask that, like, take that to the state legislature and ask if something similar can be done across the state. Also asking for additional middle housing, near transit. There are like specific bills connected to that, and that is everything that we have so far. I apologize for rambling.
Yeah, you're okay. One thing that I want to be really clear about too is you listed off a lot of stuff that was WWU specific or county specific. You're drafting just the legislative agenda that's going to be going to the state legislature, and so I would make sure, like, I get that you're brainstorming for the whole like year for like local lobby day, but I would be really careful. And also the LAC doesn't address anything related to WWU. It's just like county legislature and also the state legislature. And so if there's anything specifically at like WWU where it's like allowing like more dining swipes for free or anything like that, or stuff that has to deal with like accessibility of WWU's campus or like parking, that's something that you can work with me or also with like Sophie as well. Sophie would be another person. A lot of those are like student service area related. And so I think like, because LAC is a super like very diverse area of people that are student employees from so many different areas of Western that have a lot of concerns and really understand the university in different ways that we don't, and they really understand the need. And so I would take the lists specifically WWU specific, and it would be really great if you could share those with Sophie and I, and a little bit more information, so we can work on addressing those at Western's campus specifically, because like we can't bring something to the state legislature and being like, hey, we really wish Western would do this, and they're like, we can't make a law with that, like we can't do anything about that, like talk to admin. And so it's a lot more powerful if you're just bringing just state legislature, like the state needs to address this. And same with like not talking about stuff for the city of Bellingham, not talking about stuff for the county, and instead moving that stuff to your lobby or your local lobby day agenda and not the state lobbying day agenda. And so I would just be super careful with those, since the local lobby day agenda, that doesn't happen until spring quarter.
Yeah.
So, but super cool, would love to hear all of the like needs from students, so please share that with Sophie and I.
Yeah, definitely will.
I just want to note, I think that I really like how it's being set up this year. I think like last year, sort of the consensus was to make it shorter.
Yeah.
And I really like that. The thing I want to make is a correction of what I said earlier. I said House Bill 1363, I was wrong. Or I said House Bill 1369, I was wrong. I was actually meant to say 1363,
Okay.
but that's not actually the one that passed. The one that passed was its companion bill, which was Senate Bill 5352. Just so you actually are looking at the right bill,
Really cool.
or I guess law, since it was passed.
I have a quick question. Is the LAC going to continue to support the WSA, their part of their agenda that talks about accessing hills on college campuses? Because that's something that the legislature can do, and there's really not any higher education section on your agenda.
Yeah, we have that at the front of allowing abortion pills to be provided at student health centers on campus.
Cool, I just wanted to check and make sure that was in there. And then I might consider adding a like higher education section as well, since there are some stuff where it could be like a capital ask from Western that we support. Like last year it was like the student enhancement or like develop or like student area or like the like student resource center. There's also the like Native student scholarships as well, like were on our agenda and that was supported by Western or just different things like that. So I might consider adding a higher education section, since that's gonna be, like a lot of this stuff is very applicable to like people of Washington, but we're coming from students, and so it's very, very impactful when we're talking about stuff from higher education, because we're gonna be one of only about like a handful of people that these legislatures meet with every single year that are gonna be talking about higher education needs. And admin is gonna talk about what they would like for higher education, but that might not cover what we think students need for higher education. So I would really consider thinking about that in the crafting of the agenda.
No, for sure. We're gonna have a special guest next week, Nora Selander, who's the university's university administration's lobbyist, and she's gonna be talking to us about the administration's current agenda. And so we're gonna get it directly from her, and then we can discuss what we would like to add to our agenda. Yeah, and I want to emphasize like this was like a first session of people like throwing out ideas. And I'm gonna do more research, and I'm gonna be pulling in from administration, from the WSA, and then also other bodies like the Washington Student Achievement Council, to get more specific to higher ed, to be more specific to Western and appropriately addressed to the legislature. I will say I'm having a tough time at this stage. Just because there is this like broad, it just feels very broad right now, and I'm kind of like trying to figure out how to navigate going about this without having like actual bills to like focus on.
One thing that I can add to that is you guys don't have to have a bill for your ask. It's still just as powerful to go to the state legislature and be, hey, there's not a bill for this, but we really want to see a bill for this. This is very important. And if you're bringing 100 students down and 100 students are going and talking to the legislature about this, and you're like, hey, we think that there should be a bill made about this, you don't have to have something. And then also, bills haven't fully been drafted yet, like that's still happening, and so we can adjust it and put stuff on as that happens, because we're not gonna officially approve it till next quarter. And so this is a struggle that not just you have dealt with, happens every single year. So please don't worry about it, you're doing a phenomenal job, you already have so much done, and you're doing a great job. So please don't feel stressed about it, you're okay, and don't worry about not being able to find a bill for it, because that happens every year, and it's just as impactful to say, we want something like this. And you can also state like Oregon passed this, like why can't we have that here? So.
Pretty thoughts. Like curious suggestion of the higher ed thing. I think is maybe you could think about that definitely. I also just want to note that I know you acting in LAC's capacity, and you and whoever else was doing that decision, I think on the DOLA, right? To only have wild, I think, to like consider that, like what does it mean to just have wild versus, having Western Lobby Day but calling it wild to like, virtue signal. So like when we were talking about the wild agenda last year, like a big concern was that a lot of the things were just like repeating what we had already done in Western Lobby Day, that were also just like on the like university's agenda anyway. The other thing to consider is that just from talking to Naira last year's JOLA, it sounds like the Washington Student Association like really does focus primarily on like the higher ed, very specific stuff, which doesn't make sense, it's the WSA. And that like, how much of a loss is it really to like sort of take a step back from like pushing that, like obviously I'm not saying take it out of the legislative agenda, but like taking a step back from like really prioritizing that stuff and like maybe just putting it on like an addendum or something. Because like from my understanding of the political landscape, which I don't understand at all, is in terms of like WSA, but it sounds like a lot of other universities are going to be like focusing a lot on like the higher ed specific stuff. So just like to keep in mind, I think it's important that if we're going to call it wild, that it is actually wild and not just Western Lobby Day, but we're calling it wild.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, that's why we started off with this. We started off with a conversation about what intersectionality is, and we worked off of like this separation of like different like identities that can fit into different areas, and then issues that are specific to those areas. And I think so far we've done a good job of having multiple identities addressed. And I want to find this balance between like the higher ed and intersectional and like students feeling represented while the length of the agenda is TBD. Obviously, we're like at the beginning. But yeah, I want to open the floor.
Let's not continue, because we are at time. We do have the VP for activities appointment, so if there's anything we can talk about in an email, we still have to cover 2 things before the VP for activities, and we're way over time for this.
Okay, yeah, if you guys have any suggestions, just send them my way via email. We'd love to have more.
And you can bring this back as an information item again, or you will, but
I will, yeah.
Okay, next we're going to be moving on to the LAC student survey. Just a couple of questions that Erin provided. Everybody should have already gotten an email to their student email, or you can take these. Do you have anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, you guys can go ahead and see it for yourself. We just took those like issue areas and made questions out of things that people from the LAC had brought up. And Casey, Stella, and I had like edited them a little bit, so these aren't super up to date. But the survey was sent out yesterday at 10:30, and we've already had 90 responses, which is super cool. Yeah, I'm the owner of the document, so I have access to the responses. So I don't think I can share them right now, but I think that's something for next week. We can like talk about we can talk about how people responded, but it exists. People have been engaging with it, and that is all I need to say at this point.
I just want to say, I think it's a really good survey. I think it definitely improves upon last year's, and I just think it's good.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, next we are going to be moving on to the WSA 2024 legislative agenda. I just wanted to show you this to you guys because there's a couple of errors in there, and I've been waiting for them to update it with what we officially passed at the WSA, fall assembly, and we pay them $15,000 a year to be part of the organization. And so I just thought it would be important that all of you guys know about this. Super excited that they're having expanding the Washington College Grant on there. I'm a college grant recipient and a bridge grant recipient. It fully pays for my education here, so super exciting to see that on there. That's essentially all. Some of it overlaps with what Erin was talking about, but we pay them $15,000 a year, so I thought it was really important that we show what the $15,000 is going to and what they're going to be hopefully working on. Okay, so next is action items, which is the Vice President for Activities appointment. And then we stop streaming correctly, or?
So before you stop streaming,
Yes,
procedural point for executive session.
Yes, yeah, we share.
Announce that you're going into executive session, how long it's gonna be, when you're gonna come back before stopping your recording, is procedurally.
It's the last thing. Are we going to be coming back?
You have to in order to actually appoint the person.
Yeah.
As far as
Right.
Yes,
right?
yeah. No, you were right, yeah.
And technicality, so that folks remember, the live stream is bonus. The live stream is not required by OPMA. You can come back to regular session. If the live stream doesn't come back, you're okay with that. So if there's any technical error after the fact, it doesn't restart, you're fine. Okay.
And if you don't want to actually like end the stream, you could just mute and turn off the video. Or
Yeah,
do whatever.
you can mute and turn off the cameras. I tend to be skeptical of potential technology glitches and go for the make sure that it's not functioning, but you know,
Well, it's a good one.
that's up to you all. And honestly, anything in your executive session as well. Yeah, make sure you're not broadcasting it.
Yeah, definitely will be. Okay, so we are going to be moving into executive session for 15 minutes. We are going to be coming back at 6:43 p.m. We'll be back.